Welcome to a step out card tutorial. I'm Charee Filimoehala here at the Graphic45 office, and I'm excited to teach you how to take an ordinary card base like this one. I believe this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and turn it into an extraordinary 3-dimensional card. These are fun and easy to create and really pack a lot of punch when giving it to a recipient who's going to really enjoy displaying this on their mantle or desktop. These have been created for us this month by Ropp of My Sister Scrapper. And Ginger is always showing us creative ways to use our Graphic45 products, which we love that you can use these techniques over and over again. This is a part of our G45 Card Club. This is volume 1 for 2021. And in this kit this month, you're going to be getting our Nature Notebook 8x8s. You get 24 sheets in there, double-sided and absolutely gorgeous, full of fun different elements that you can fussy cut apart and reuse for mini albums and home decor as well. You'll also be getting, of course, our black card bases. You get 6 of these. They're a nice heavy duty so they can hold down all of our embellishments, including the metal. And you'll get 6 coordinating black envelopes as well in there. You'll get the Graphic45 Ornate metal corners, our Nature Notebook chipboard, and a colored step-by-step project sheet so you can follow along or recreate these cards for years to come. And then, of course, you'll be getting our Graphic45 bag. This one's been sized down and fits our card club perfectly, so you can always store your leftovers in the bag, or if you need to stop while making your cards, you can always stuff all your goodies in there and keep them all nice and organized. So we encourage you to hop on over to our website, g45papers.com, and subscribe to the kit so you get one of these sent directly to you every month in the mail. Or, of course, you can just pick up just this kit. We would recommend doing it sooner than later because our kits usually sell out pretty quickly. So grab your kit, or you can always just grab some cardstock and papers and create along with us in this tutorial. So if you've got your directions in front of you, you'll notice that it does say in the notes that if you want to ink your edges while you go along, go ahead and do that. I don't do that in the videos just to keep things streamlined and faster, but you can see Ginger has done that with her sample and it looks beautiful. And then also note that each of the card bases are created the same way. So let's get started on doing that card base. So we'll just take, if you're going to be creating all 6 cards, you'll want to do this with all 6 cards at the same time. So we're taking one of our black card bases. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we are going to be turning it into this fun little step card. So you can see it really has a lot of fun dimension and just really adds a lot to your cards, especially when they're sitting displayed on a shelf or a desk. Step 1, we are going to be doing some trimming. So I've put my card at 2 1/2 inches on the 5 1/2 inch side. So I've put my my card in, and you can see it's at 2 1/2 inches. And now before I push down on my blade, I'm going to find my 1 inch mark. So I have my blade at my 1 inch mark, which is where I will start cutting. So once I've got it there, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it down to the 6 1/2 inch mark. So just following the measurements on the side here, I've pulled that down to the 6 1/2 inch mark. And then you'll just do the same with all 6 of your card bases. And of course, if you don't have a paper trimmer that works like this one where you can pick up your blade and drop it where you would like, you can always use a ruler and an X-Acto knife as well. So you just mark 2 1/2 inches in, and then you would start your cut at 1 inch from the top and go to 6 1/2 inches down. Step 2, we are going to be scoring. So we want to score on our 2 1/2 inch section that we've cut, and then I want my 1 inch section to be towards the left. So so we began cutting at the 1 inch mark. So that's going to be my first score, is going to be just on that 2.5 inch section to my first, where my cut begins at 1 inches. And then my second score will be at 2 inches. Just, I'm only cutting or scoring that area that's the 2.5 inch. And then from here, we're going to score at 3 1/4. However, because I'm using a scoreboard that doesn't have scores all throughout, I'm going to have to just move my card base up 1/4 inch and then score at that 3.5 inch mark. So it is, when I move it back, that is still being scored at 3 1/4 inches. That's just what I had to do to make it work for this scoreboard. And then I will score at 4.5. And then my last score will be at 6.5, where my cut should end. Now that I've scored all of my pieces, I'm going to start down here with my 1 inch score line, and that's going to be a mountain going up. That 2 inch score line will fold down into a valley. My 3 1/4 will score up into a mountain. That 4.5 will score down into a valley, and then my 6.5 will be another mountain. So you will end up with your card base looking like this. And then you'll do that with all of your card bases that we'll be working with. Step 4, from every blooming thing, we've cut our piece to be 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And we're going to adhere it to the largest section of the front of our card. So you can use whatever adhesive you'd like at this point. You can use a dry adhesive if that's your go-to, or a liquid. I'm using Art Glitter Glue liquid adhesive. If you've watched my tutorials, you'll know I love liquid adhesive just for the ease of being able to kind of slide things around, and things aren't as permanent. Especially while making videos, I can run into things where I accidentally glue things upside down or other things like that, and it's really nice to have that wiggle room where I can fix it before I've ruined my pieces. Step 5, I've trimmed out this butterfly cut apart from Beautiful World. That measures to be 1 7/8 inch by 2 7/8. And then for step 6, I've taken Seasonal Splendor, and this measures to be 5 1/4. And now I'm just going to adhere my border to the bottom of my card base. And now let's adhere our butterflies onto our large panel, just flush at the top of our floral border in the center. Step 8, we're going to trim out 2 more pieces of every blooming thing. One will measure to be 2 3/8 by 1 1/2, and the other will measure to be 2 3/8 by 3 inches. Step 9, we've taken the remainder of that border, and we have trimmed this down to be 2 3/8 inch, and we are going to add it on top of our every blooming thing. That's 2 3/8 by 1 1/2, and this is just going to go right at the top. You'll notice that there is some writing on there, so if you want to be mindful of keeping things right side up, and that'll adhere right there. And then we'll adhere this down to our second step. So on our step card, this is just going to go right in there. Just center it from left and right, and then you'll see it does pop up a little bit off our step. So since I use some liquid adhesive, I do want to be mindful that I don't get any onto my next step gluing this piece down to the other one. So making sure that that's nice and clean. There we go. Step 10, we're trimming out this Happiness cut apart, and it's going to measure to be 2 3/8 by 1 7/8. And then we will adhere it on top of our piece that's 2 3/8 by 3 inches. That'll just go flush to the top of there, and then we'll adhere this onto the third step. So I'm just going to add my adhesive directly onto here. It's not going to go all the way to either of the sides since this won't cover that fully. And it is going to be popping off the top, so just want to be mindful that everything will be laying smoothly. And I'm not adhering this down onto this back part here. So now I have created my beautiful step card number 1. Hold up, I've almost created my beautiful number 1 card. So we're just going to pull out one of these decorative ornate corners, and then using some heavy duty liquid glue, you can go ahead and glue this onto our card front. So this is going to adhere in that top left-hand corner, like so, adding some beautiful detail. And then if you have any excess, you can always just take a rag or a paper towel and clean up your excess adhesive, and then set this aside to dry. And don't forget the chipboard tab. So I've just popped this out. I usually push them through the back and then pull them out of my cellophane. I like to keep the plastic wrap, shrink wrap around it. That way it keeps all of my pieces nice and organized, and I know where they all are. And then just taking a nail file or some sandpaper, we can go ahead and trim off those little, or sand off those little nubs. And then from there, we're just going to add a line of adhesive on the bottom of that tab and add it to our first step. Like so. And there you have it. Now we have finished our card 1. You can see it's beautiful and dimensional. It's got some gorgeous colors. It's going to be great for birthdays or other special occasions, maybe get well. And then taking that same template, same inspiration, here is another idea of how you can create that, just using some green background paper. There's a fussy cut butterfly, and just a few other cut apart pieces and borders from your Nature Notebook 8x8s, another ornate corner, and a chipboard banner piece. Moving on to card number 2. The first thing we're going to do is grab one of our pre-made card bases, and then we're going to take Harmonious Honeybees, and we've cut 3 pieces. One's going to be 2 3/4 by 4 inches, and this one is 2 3/8 by 3 inches, and this last one is 2 3/8 by 2 3/8 by 1 1/4. And then using a scrap of Harmonious Honeybees, that's about 3 inches squared, I'm going to take this lemon chipboard piece. I've already sanded down the edges, and I'm just going to adhere it down onto my honeybees. And now I'm going to trim it out, leaving a bit of a border. So I just want a nice 1/4 of an inch border or so around my chipboard, just adding that nice little matting effect. It'll really make it pop and add extra dimension. There we have it. Now with our Monarch Majesty, I'm going to fussy cut out 3 of these butterflies. So just loosely cutting around what I want. I've taken out 2 right here, and I'll pull those 2 apart, and then I'll grab one more. It's been loosely cut around, and now we can do some fussy cutting. So just with your sharpest fine tip scissors that you've got in your craft stash, go ahead and these little butterflies out. You know, our butterfly papers are always one of our fastest to sell out, just due to how much fun it is to add fussy cut butterflies to all your different projects. They're great on cards or in your mini albums. They're great little embellishments. And if you can see how many butterflies were on that last paper or the paper that we are cutting these from, I mean, you can really get a lot of dimensional elements just from one paper. So we fussy cut out our first of the 3. And if you're new to Graphic 45, we always like to do a little bit of fussy cutting on our Club G45 projects, just to kind of show you how you can visualize our papers. You can just pull them apart. I know some people are a little intimidated to cut into them in the beginning, and so we want to show you that cutting into them is just part of the fun. And once you add your own special touches, the papers really come to life. So get them out of your drawers and let's have some fun with those papers. Fussy cutting also is a great thing to do while, you know, maybe if you're listening to your favorite podcast, you can just pull out some of your decorative papers and just do some fussy cutting until you're feeling inspired for your next project. I know a lot of times the ideas come fluttering out while you're cutting out these cute little designs. So next we are going to be using some of our negative space from this chipboard to add some dimension to our project. So I just want to make sure that I'm not cutting into any of my chipboard pieces, just cutting out some of that negative chipboard space. And if you have some older chipboard sheets where you've already used more of your pieces, this would be ideal to use those as well. But we'll just get in there and get what we need for now. So I have cut out a few different things. I'm just going to cut this one in half. And then now if we just want to take some of those pieces and adhere them onto one another, that way it's just building up some dimension. So just adhere this on there. And then we already have this other little piece going. So it's just using up our scraps to create some dimension. And now we're getting our pieces ready. So let's start to create that big panel for the main step of our card. So just using some liquid adhesive, I'm going to adhere my lemons in the center of my largest honeybees panel. And then I'm going to take my 3 fussy cut butterflies, and these are going to adhere down. I kind of folded this one in half, and I'm only going to add adhesive onto one of its wings. That way it can be a little bit in flight, but it will be able to lay down flat, but it can always come up, adding that nice little shadow and dimension. And then with our smallest little butterfly, I'm going to put this over our tag hole. So you can see I've got our chipboard tag hole there, and that just goes perfectly on the top there. And then again, I will fold my butterfly wing and adhere this. I want to make sure it stays on my yellow section so it doesn't fly off my card. So like so. And then now we can take our chipboard layered pieces that we created and flip this over, and we're going to just adhere these onto the back of our big panel piece. This is just going to give it that nice extra dimension. You can always, of course, do this with a cardboard that you've got at your house. You can use foam adhesives as well. So just whatever you've got. It's always great, though, to use up those extra scraps. And then from our ornate metal corners, we're going to take out 2 of our dimensional corners. These cuties that have the dimensional sides. And then these are going to adhere onto the top left-hand corner and the bottom right. And that's why we needed to add that extra dimension on the back of our panel. So these will sit nice and flat once they're on our card base. But since I've just added those, I'm going to go ahead and let it dry for a second before I try to adhere it down. Step 6, we're going to trim out Life is a Flower border strip. Love is the Honey, and this is going to go on our first step of our card. So there will be about an equal amount of black showing from the top right and bottom on our step 1. Step 7, from Seasonal Splendor, we've trimmed out this butterfly border to be 2 3/8 of an inch, and we are going to adhere to the top of our 2 3/8 of an inch by 1 1/4 honeybee piece. And then this will adhere to our step 2. So just adding the adhesive directly onto step 2. Making sure not to put the adhesive all the way to the left or right hand side, since there is a bit of black showing. And that just adheres beautifully onto step 2. And then for step 8, we're going to trim out the Life is a Flower, Love is the Honey from our Beautiful World. This is 2 3/8 of an inch by 2 inches, and then we'll adhere it down to our last honeybees piece. And then again on that step 3, we will add our adhesive directly to this step. Making sure you're not adhering onto that back little panel. So all of our steps should be beautifully done up now. And we did go out of order with our steps, and we decorated this, which is step 9. So if you're following along with the directions, you can go ahead and put all this together. But if you've been doing it along with us in the video, now that this is set aside, and we set this aside to dry, it is ready to be adhered onto our panel. So I'm just going to add adhesive onto the pieces that are popping out that will be touching the panel. And then this will just adhere like so. And now we have a beautiful and dimensional honeybees butterfly card. And then using that same template, here is another example of what you can create. So you can see we've got our fussy cut butterflies popping off this chipboard piece. We have our metal down here, and it's nicely popped up with our scrap chipboard pieces. And then some nice butterfly kisses border. And some. Also, if you're following along with the project sheet, the photo of this card is actually incorrect. It should be this card. So it's going to be a lot easier to follow along with me on this video at this point to see which papers and everything we're using. They are listed all correctly on the project sheet. It's just the wrong photo was inserted. So taking one of our pre-made card bases we've already done, now we are going to take from Verdant Woodlands, we'll cut out 3 pieces, one that will be 2 3/4 by 4 inches, one that will be 2 3/8 by 3 inches, and one that'll be 2 3/8 by 1.5. Step 3, we've cut out this butterfly cut apart from Beautiful World, and then we're going to fussy cut out. We don't want any of this green border part, so we are going to be fussy cutting that out, and we'll keep our butterfly wing intact here. And then once you've done that, you can just go all around your edges. And then from Seasonal Splendor, we're going to cut out this World is But a Canvas cut apart, and we want it to be 2 3/8 by 2 inches. And then we're going to trim out 2 butterfly border pieces to be 2 inches by 3/8. So I'm just going to trim off this info strip on both of those. And we're going to adhere The World is But a Canvas to our piece that's 2 3/8 by 3 inches. Just flush with the top left and right. And then we'll adhere this to our 3rd step of our card. Again, not adding adhesive all the way to the sides because there is a bit of the sides poking from both the left and right. And putting it on the step, of course, keeps us from putting air. And now we're going to take one of these borders, and it will adhere to the top of our smallest Verdant Woodlands piece. And then this will adhere to our step 2. And now we'll add this remaining butterfly strip to our step number 1 on our card base. And then we'll adhere our butterfly cut apart to our largest Verdant Woodlands piece. And this adheres right onto the front of our card number 3. Then add your liquid adhesive, and we're going to pop this ornate metal corner right in that top corner. And then last but not least, we are going to add this cute little butterfly oval chipboard piece to the front of our card. And that's just going to adhere right in the center, making sure not to cover up our other yellow butterfly. So there you have it. Now we've completed our card number 3 of this series. And then taking that same template, here you can see we've created another show-stopping dimensional piece. So we've got another cut apart here that we've trimmed out, a chipboard piece where you are seeing both the pomegranates on both that piece, another ornate metal corner, and some gorgeous red papers, and the sentiment, nature never did betray the heart that loved her. We hope you've enjoyed creating these step out cards along with us today. Be sure to share your cards with us on Instagram using that Graphic45 hashtag, or on our Graphic45 community page on Facebook. You can go ahead and share all your projects there and your tips and tricks. If you're looking for more fun video tutorials like this one, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and then hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we post a new tutorial like this one. We thank you so much for being a part of the club and joining us for these tutorials. As always, happy paper crafting.